get started. Whenever born, you dudes in the latest news. Complex and interesting, take the time out to invest in straight talk wrestling. Get the facts, get the tables, get the racks.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to Straight Talk Wrestling. As always, I'm your host, your boy George Mackay. Today I got a good one. You can see her on the screen, a legacy in professional wrestling, the daughter of one of the all-time greats, in my opinion, inside that squared circle, without a doubt. Please help me welcome Bronwyne Billington, daughter of the Dynimate Kid. How are you?
Thank you so much. What a lovely introduction. I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I try to pride myself in my introductions, but your dad means so much to me personally, being Canadian, but also being, when you're a Canadian wrestling fan, when you're a kid in Canada, you can't talk about pro wrestling without mentioning everything in Calgary, without mentioning the Hart family. It's just not possible. If you're a Canadian pro wrestling fan, you know this family through and through and everything they mean, your father included, as well as yourself, the legacies, the children, everybody's having great successes. So first question I guess I got to ask is, being a member of that legacy, second generation in the professional wrestling business, do you feel that pressure to live up to the names that literally built, like the bricks were built by some big, powerful, strong men?
For me, I mean, I don't wrestle, right? So I am a professional. I am involved in professional wrestling, but I'm a manager. So I don't feel as much of that pressure. I just feel the joy helping carry that legacy alive, keep it alive, and keep my dad's legacy alive, you know? So for me, it's really, really inspiring and just I enjoy it. I love it. So
I like that. I like that. That's fantastic. And I mean, of course, I read an article of an interview that you did a couple years ago. I believe, forgive me if my research doesn't do me wrong, this was from the British Wrestling Revival blog. This was back in 2013.
okay.
So a little bit over a decade ago,
Yeah.
anyways. But
Yeah.
it talked about how you were literally at a show in Calgary in the Victoria Pavilion, where, again, if anybody knows Stampede Wrestling, they know exactly where that was held. And you had an opportunity to walk your husband down to the ring at that show, literally where Stampede Wrestling was born.
Yes.
How cool was it, that moment, to be in that building, just soaking up the history that's in that building?
Yeah, it was definitely a goosebump moment. I was like looking around at the bleachers and looking up at the ceiling, and that's where they have the Stampede, like there's animals in there. So there's like horse, I don't even know what you call it, where horses are.
Stable.
And
Stable
stable.
corral? Yes.
Yeah, you can smell it, and it's, so just all that, taking it all in, and like, okay, this is where my dad was standing backstage. This is where Brett was. This is where Bad News Allen was. So it was just really, yeah, I got goosebumps literally looking around. And so I had the chance to, like you said, my husband at the time was a wrestler. We're no longer together, but that's how I first got involved in wrestling. And so I got to walk him to the ring at that amazing show. And just that little taste of professional wrestling, I was hooked from there. It was a great event. Everyone speaks so highly of my dad backstage, all the wrestlers praising my dad, how he's inspired them to, in their style of wrestling. And so that feeling felt so good, like I belonged somewhere. I was like, oh, this is what I've been missing out on my whole life. Like, I'm definitely coming back next month. It was great.
It's like a healthy addiction, right? Once you get into that, once you get soaked into that, I don't know what it is, man. Wrestling, when you're in it and you love it and you live, like, I mean, you've grown up with it. I've grown up with it, a completely different ways of growing up, but I mean, it's a high you cannot get over. Hearing fans boo, cheer, screaming for the good guy, wanting to kill the bad guy. It's just all part of that experience that it is, and how wrestling can bring complete strangers together. It's amazing.
And it's just like a sense of belonging. It's like being on any sports team. If you play basketball or baseball, whatever it may be, dance, but mine just happens to be wrestling.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it any way better myself. My kid dance, I could not dance to save my life. I don't have any rhythm. Bronwyne, where I'm on, I have no rhythm, okay? I'm a two-stepper. I go left and right, that's it. If you look at my wedding video, my dance with my wife, we danced in the circle, and I didn't go outside the circle.
As long as you try.
I did. I tried.
She appreciated that.
She did. So I got to talk about the Dark Side of the Ring episode. Season 3, episode 7. A powerful episode. We dove deep into, the rise and the fall of your father, his legacy, and all that. Was it
Mhm.
hard to go through everything and maybe possibly hear stories from your mom that you may have not heard in a while or may have not heard at all, and to see it all kind of come out in that, I guess, the whole process? What was the whole process of that documentary for you?
Um, it was so it was during COVID, so super nerve-wracking waiting to film it. Just like kind of anxious, like how's it gonna turn out? I don't want this to be like negative for my father. Because we really had, his best interest at heart, what the reason we chose to film it. So it was just nerve-wracking after we filmed it too, like how's this gonna turn out? Are they gonna twist it? Are they gonna cut things? But everything that was talked about, nothing was new to me, but seeing it acted out was definitely triggering for me. Still now, I think I've watched it 3 or 4 times. I think it was really, really well done. And they were really respectful of our family and our wishes and how we wanted it to play out. But it's still just triggering watching it, like actors actually playing you and playing your father and playing your mother. So, but overall, the very end of it, I really liked how it was wrapped up. And my mom's like final message at the end is like the high point for me, especially when she's speaking about her children and just let her children heal. I thought that was really powerful and amazing.
Absolutely. She's a strong woman for sure, a strong mother, a great example. And your father, without a doubt, has his demons. Nobody's perfect. I
Yeah.
don't believe there's anybody in this world that's perfect, and anybody that says that they are or doesn't have demons or skeletons in their closet or what have you, they're full of baloney. There's nobody in this earth that walks with a clean slate. So I feel like you guys did justice for your father, but I feel like we got to see some sides of him that were almost, because when wrestlers are in the ring and you're a kid, like I remember watching the British Bulldogs, and I remember thinking both of these guys are giants to me. They're larger than life superheroes. And then to see that they're actually human and they're fragile, and to show the honesty of it all. I like Dark Side of the Ring because it pulls the curtain back, but it
Yeah.
also gives us that human touch, and it allows us to see that these are real people and they went
Mhm.
through ups and downs just like anybody else.
Yeah, and I think the only thing really missing is like the background story of how he got into wrestling, or yeah, those more positive stories, but that would involve making a biography. So you're not going to see that on Dark Side of the Ring. So we knew what we were signing up for, and we knew we just wanted to make a strong message. For me, it's about forgiveness and not holding on to a grudge and being able to move on and just live a more peaceful life by letting go of some things and forgiving people and um yeah, so that was my message, but my mom's was more about like CTE and, you know, just all that.
Totally understand. Totally understand. So, one thing I will say that's really awesome is your dad may not be in the WWE Hall of Fame, but he is in the Stampede Wrestling Hall of Fame, which, in my opinion, next to the New Japan Wrestling Hall of Fame, those are where your dad really belongs, because those were the best years of him in the squared circle. Would you agree or disagree with that statement?
There's so many eras of my dad that I love, but I mean, Stampede Wrestling is kind of where everything just shot up and um yeah, he really got his start here in Calgary at Stampede Wrestling. So, yeah, I'd have to agree it was pretty, a highlight of his career for sure.
Absolutely. I feel like he grew into who we saw in WWE. And I feel like even though he had some classic matches in WWE, we didn't really get to see him shine throughout. We didn't get to see the same Dynamite Kid that you saw in Stampede or the same Dynamite Kid you saw in Japan. I almost
Yep.
feel like in a way when you get to WWE, as much as you're more globally known,
Yeah,
you're very, very controlled on how you can be or how you can act. It's like you have to be this way. You can't go left, you got to go right. It must
that's
be so creatively frustrating for some of these guys.
for sure. And I feel like that's still an issue today, and that's why a lot of them go over to AEW, um, or wherever they may go.
Absolutely. On the indies, everywhere they go.
Yeah.
And it's great too, because now we're in a time of wrestling where it's so available. It's not just, what's on TV anymore, what's on cable television. We now have streaming networks that are just wrestling focused. We're able to get promotions from all over the world. I mean, right now to be a wrestling fan, I think is the coolest time in pro wrestling because there's so much of it out there. And if you don't like A, B, or C, guess what? There's D, E, F, G, all the way to the Z's for
Yeah.
you to enjoy. And I feel like everyone can fall in love with pro wrestling in their own way. Would you agree with that?
For sure. Yeah, you're right. And there's so much out there. I remember the days I couldn't even access like the Stampede wrestling, and now you can, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the matches in Stampede Wrestling are great, but I mean, I have to go back. When I think of your dad, I think of everything with Tiger Mask. Tiger
Yes.
Mask and your dad can fight forever. I always say that there's always two pro wrestlers that have that chemistry, that fight forever feel that no matter what, they could not wrestle for 10 years, come back and just have that fluidity and that charisma and that chemistry all over again. And I feel like your dad's fight forever opponent, hands down, was Tiger Mask. I don't think there's anybody else but Tiger Mask your dad would want to fight with.
Totally. 100% agree. So I have a tiger mask tattoo on my ankle.
I love it. That's awesome. Do you got any tats for your dad, like representing your
I
dad?
do. Yeah, I have a little cartoon of my dad. It's right next to the tiger mask that I have. I think that's all I have. Yeah.
That's still cool. Like you got your dad's all-time favorite opponent, his
Yeah.
arch nemesis, if you will, and you
Yes.
have him. So that's
Mhm.
perfect. Now they're on you.
My cousin Harry talks to Tiger Mask. Well, kind of, but he doesn't speak good English. So, because I'm always like, ask him for a mask for me. Like, I would love to have that in my collection.
Yeah.
But he doesn't speak good English. So I can't seem to get a hold of him.
But speaking of Harry, I'm a big MLW fan, and I love everything he's doing over there in MLW right now. Especially right now, they're currently redoing the Opera Cup again. This is the Opera Cup season for MLW right now. I'm not sure if your dad ever could participate in the Opera Cup tournaments and stuff like that, or if there was ever ideas of bringing the Opera Cup back when Stampede was around, because I know it was out of commission for a bit, but then they brought it back just recently. MLW was given the right by Harry and the Hart family. So, do you
Yeah.
think if tournaments like that were around back when your dad was there, that your dad would have not so much participated in that, but I think your dad would have won. Am I wrong when I say that? I feel like he would have won.
You know, I have to admit, I don't even know what this cup is about.
So the Opera Cup is a cup that's been around for 120 years. It's like pro wrestling royalty. It's like winning the Open of wrestling. If you win this, you have the ability to say you are an Opera Cup champion. And the way MLW does it, if you win the tournament, you get a title shot. So you get a shot at their heavyweight champion. So the Opera Cup's been around, but it's pretty much wrestling royalty in a
Yeah.
way because it's one of the longest reigning tournament prizes in all of professional wrestling. So pretty cool.
Yeah, I feel like he would love that because that's more, it's not just like your territory champion, it's like more worldwide, right? So
Yeah,
I think that would actually mean something to him. It like puts more meaning towards it.
absolutely. I could see that. Now I got to ask a really cool in the Dark Side of the Ring documentary, they showed a lot of pictures. Old pictures of you with, I believe there's a picture of you with Miss Elizabeth and Macho Man that they showed.
Yes.
I know you've been asked this question to death, but I mean, you're a young kid, you're being around all these larger than life characters. You have no idea how big some of these names will become, how immortalized they would be in
Yeah.
wrestling. When you think about those moments, and I know you've said that they adored you, and I could
Yes.
totally see Macho Man and Elizabeth like buying you candy, giving you popcorn, doing all this stuff,
Yeah.
Elizabeth braiding your hair, something like that. When you think about that and those moments of your childhood and you see how immortalized these figures are, is it cool that you got to know them on that personal level that a lot of
Yes.
other people wouldn't have been able to see?
Yes, very much so. And just, yeah, like you said, I had no idea it was just my life. So looking back, I didn't know how big that would be growing up and being like, yeah, Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth sent me birthday cards every year. Like, I was at barbecues with all these wrestlers, or we had water gun fights with a bunch of them when we were a little bit older at my Uncle Brett's house. So this was just my life. I didn't know any better. And looking back, it's like, yeah, there's like Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, like Undertaker. That's like, those are all the guys we had the super soaker water fight with. And then they went and filled up the guns with milk and were shooting us all with milk. Like it's just a wild, wild life that I've lived, and super fortunate.
Absolutely. I mean, how many people could say that they were in a water gun fight with The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels? I mean, and Razor Ramon. Like
Yeah,
that's
they were all there.
yeah, there's not a lot of people that could say that. So you definitely hold that record with all the other kids that were obviously at the house. You
Yes.
guys hold it together.
Yeah.
So when you look at your dad's legacy and how influential he's been on the business in the best of ways possible, he was a smaller guy and he wasn't supposed to be the normal champion, the normal person to be able to do the things that he did. But your dad, in his small stature, was larger than life in a lot of ways. And a legacy that he left behind, again, in the squared circle, it can't be unmatched. And to see how influential your dad is, and when you hear wrestlers that may have never met you, they come up to you and they say, your dad was one of my biggest inspirations, or your dad was the reason I got into professional wrestling, or your dad made me feel like I could do this too. Even though you probably hear it a lot of times, every time does it feel any less special?
No, I think it makes me feel really proud. And yeah, I just know that that's part of his legacy. So hearing that, it's like knowing he's not being forgotten, and that's so, so important that, they're he's still remembered and idolized, and all his hard work that he did and the sacrifices weren't for nothing.
Absolutely. Now, in the Dark Side of the Ring documentary, there's a moment that you talked about where you flew to see him and he wasn't in the best of health. And you walked in after not seeing him for a few years, and you talk about, just seeing this fragile version of your dad and how, you broke down. But you also had special moments that were a lot that weren't really touched on in the Dark Side of the Ring. There's an interview that I got from Natty that did on Fightful with you in 2018, where he talked about how you were watching an interview with one of his old wrestling buddies, and he was off in the corner, and you kind of just went over to the kitchen, you sat beside him, you guys just hugged and you cried. You didn't say anything, but in that moment you said everything. Can you touch
Yeah.
on that?
Yes. So we were watching, so what happened was I showed up on his doorstep, I think 2 days prior to that. And I was crying and scared and shitting my pants. And his wife answers the door and is like, "Yeah, come in. Oh my God." She knew who I was right away, even though they probably haven't seen me since I was like 10, like pictures of me. So, I mean, I guess you never, you can tell by the eyes, like it's the same kid, right?
100%. Yep.
So I came in and my dad just acted like nothing had happened and was like, "Sit down, let's talk. How are you?" And I'm like, "Well, I have a daughter now, like she's 2 years old," and all that. And then I stopped crying because he was acting like nothing had ever happened, like no time had passed. I was like, okay, maybe I'm okay, it's fine, whatever. So we were there for a bit. I was with my cousin, and then we made plans for me to come back the second day because they're like, all right, I'll come back for lunch or whatever, or tea as they call it. So I came back the next day, and then each day I'd come back a little bit longer, a little bit longer. I think it was the third day. I was supposed to go to the mall with my cousin. So we just stopped in to see my dad. No, I think it was actually past the third day because it was nearing the end of the trip and I was only there for a week. So I knew that my time with my dad was getting less and less. So we were going to go to the mall, but then my cousin, we were there for an hour. We leave the house, we're driving to the mall, and I'm crying because I'm like, I knew my time with my dad's going to end. So he's like, "Do you want to go back to your dad's?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." So he took me back to my dad's, and then we like had a beer together, and we were watching a shoot interview on Bad News Alan that, oh, I can't remember the company that made it now. High Spots. It was like a High Spots interview. So we were just watching that and talking about him, and I'm sitting on the couch, my dad's in his wheelchair, and it's like I just want to be like closer to him. So I took a kitchen table chair and like sat right next to him in his wheelchair, and then we just like kind of started hugging and crying. And he just said, "I'm sorry." Like that was all he said. And I didn't say anything, and he didn't have to say anything else. And I just like knew what that meant, and it's all I really needed um, to move forward. Yeah.
Love that. That's incredible. That's it. That's incredible, and it shows the true power of healing and the true power
Yeah.
of love and the true power of forgiveness. And I feel like kudos to you guys, you, your sister, your brother, because a lot of triggering child, like I've had my own childhood traumas. I'm not going to get into them because this is all about you. But I've had my own childhood traumas, but I've overcome, and I feel like it's made me a better father, a better husband, and a better overall person when you can overcome those traumas and just find peace in yourself. What do you
Yeah.
think?
And that's where I was at. I had a 2-year-old daughter at home. And when I had her, I was like, oh, I'm full now. I'm a mom. But then as time is going on, I started to not feel full anymore. And I knew it was because my dad was missing. So I was like, well, now that I'm a parent, I know how hard it is and how much you have to sacrifice. And some people just do the best that they can, and that's all they can do. And so I went to reconnect with my dad, and I left England, and I also reconnected with my dad's side of the family. So I left England feeling full again. So I was like, I was born in Canada, but I didn't really know my British family very much because it was just countries apart. But once Facebook came around, that's how I reconnected with my dad. I found my cousins on there. And so I was able to like meet my uncle and my aunt and my cousins and their kids. And I just was whole again. Yeah. I knew all parts of me.
I like that. I like that. Even though a lot of people would say Facebook is incredibly toxic, you used it for what it's supposed to be used for,
Well, that's when
reconnecting.
it first came out, and that's yeah, how powerful it was. And now it's just garbage, but
I don't disagree with the statement garbage at all. Absolutely 100% true. But talking about to go back to the dark side of the ring, they really went through a lot of information packed in such a short span of time. They went through a lot. And one of the big things I guess they touched on was the incident with Jacques Rougeau and all that stuff that kind of took place back there. I mean, have Jacques Rougeau has had things to say about your dad. I'm sure your dad had things to say about Jacques Rougeau. Have
yeah.
you and Jacques ever crossed paths? Has there ever been a conversation there?
No, he's requested to be my Facebook friend, and I've just left it sitting there because I just don't know how I feel.
I
I'm
get it.
just like, I'm good, thanks.
I get it. I completely understand it. Not trying to create any drama there. I was just curious to see
No,
if he had reached out in any way, shape, or form.
no, it's tempting because I know that he has like a wrestling promotion wherever he is, which is in Canada somewhere.
Mhm. Yeah, he's in Montreal. He's in Montreal. He's
Montreal.
got
Yep.
Loot Academy, which is the wrestling
Yeah.
academy. It does a
And I see a lot of people I know that kind of work for him or work with him, and I'm a little bit intrigued because I'm trying to branch out and travel around and, check out different cities and countries. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Listen,
I'm a person of forgiveness, so we'll see.
listen. If anybody knows your story, and especially even that dark side of the ring, when you talk about, you definitely know forgiveness in the
Mhm.
best ways possible. And if you're ever looking to come down to Ontario, we have a lot of crazy promotions out here. We have a lot of amazing promotions out here. So you could definitely tap into. You could fill your whole weekend coming to Ontario with the great promotions that we have out here. So
Yeah,
if you need any more information off that, for sure,
yeah.
slide in my DMs. I will point you in any directions that I can.
Yes, I would love to.
All right, perfect. A couple more questions and I'll go let you enjoy your evening. But
Okay.
when you think about your dad and the legacy that he left behind, but also the fact that it's shrouded in a little bit of, darkness and misconceptions and demons like we talked about, do you feel like the demons outweigh the legacy of your father as the man, as opposed to in the squared circle, he's good. For whatever reason, wrestling fans always remember what happened in that squared circle. But sometimes when they hear what happened behind the curtain, it changes perceptions. Do you feel like because of all the negativity about what happened behind the curtain, it kind of brings down his legacy from what he did in the squared circle?
That's a good question and a hard question.
Mhm.
Um, my personal experience, how much people like reach out to me and give positive feedback. I feel like for the majority, his legacy is remembered in a positive way, which is for his wrestling. Um, Probably, honestly, only once or twice a year I'll get some like nasty comments on Twitter and stuff like that. So I feel like the positive outweighs the negative, but I'm sure it tainted his legacy a little bit and brought him down a little bit, but in the same route, even if they're talking bad about you, they're still talking about you, and that's what my dad always said. So like negative press is still good press. He's still being talked about. So and
I
that's
like
how I felt about doing Dark Side of the Ring. I was like, well, this is still helping bring his legacy back. Because I feel like a lot of things weren't happening for a while, and now like I feel like we're picking up steam again and things are coming to light, and hopefully we're working towards that Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. I feel like the Hall of Fame is within reach because if you think about it, there's some members of the current Hall of Fame that aren't the best individuals and they've all had demons and so forth. But if time and forgiveness can happen, if a family can forgive, if kids can forgive, if a granddaughter or grandson can learn that their grandfather was a superhero, then why can't the wrestling world honor who he is? And I feel like that's well overdue. I mean, one half of the Bulldogs got in. Why not the other half? Or better yet, why not Dynamite Kid by himself, then the Bulldogs together? I feel like that's what needs to happen as well.
Yeah, I feel like we're inching closer. I'm not going to hold my breath because I don't want to be let down, but that's what we're working towards.
Absolutely. Well, regardless of the fact, I'll tell you like this, he's in my Hall of Fame. Okay. He's in my Hall of Fame, and that's what matters.
That's all that matters.
That's absolutely it. So my final question for you before I let you go. Um, we talked a little bit off camera about your daughter, but
Yep.
reconnecting with your father, and I guess your daughter now being a little bit older, where she can understand stories about grandpa. Is there any stories like good stories or great stories that you tell her that she always kind of giggles or smiles about when you talk about your dad? Like something that crazy might have happened at Stampede Wrestling. Like your dad, as much as, you know, shrouded again in that negative legacy, I know there were so many positives. And I know your dad was a prankster. I heard that he liked to get at the jokes in every once in a while.
I think that she just loves hearing like kind of the love stories from my mom. Like, so hearing about her grandma and grandpa, and she really likes hearing about that side. But yeah, the goofy side from me growing up, like he had his retainer, like after Jacques Rougeau punched his teeth out. He
Yes.
had like a little retainer, but he'd always play tricks on me and like lift it up and down. And I thought my dad was magic. I was just like, so it was really, really cute. And he would snore really, really loud.
Wow.
Uh, and I was a little girl watching my cartoons and he'd be napping on the couch. So I would go and like get tea towels and just like put them on his face. And I'm like, I can still hear him. I could still hear him. So I kept putting more and more tea towels on his face. And it was like, he woke up and there was a pile on his head like this big. Um, he was like, what the? And I was like, you're snoring, Dad. I can't hear my cartoons.
I love it. I love it.
And then just, you know, how much he loved me, and like I was daddy's girl. I was the firstborn. I asked for a pony for my birthday, my 4th birthday, and I got it. We were not equipped to take care, like we lived on an acreage, but we did not know how to take care of horses. So I think I had the moment of like seeing the horse gallop out into our lawn or our acreage. And then our neighbors luckily actually like had horses. So I think they actually bought it from us and like took over. But and then I just go visit the horse. But you know, things like that just show how much he really loved his little girl, and he would do anything to make her smile.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a girl dad myself, a proud girl dad of 2 daughters.
Yeah, me
And
too. I have two.
yeah, see, so you understand how it is. They have you wrapped. They
Mhm.
absolutely have you wrapped. My 14-year-old will be, you know, 1 minute she'll give me all that teenage attitude, and
Yeah.
then 2 minutes later she's like, Dad, can I have like $10? You can have 20, okay? But I'm not happy right now, but I'm gonna give you the two. Like I'm a sucker. I'm a girl dad sucker through and through, and I'm no shame to say my kids have me whipped.
Yes.
Yes, they do, and
Little girls are the best.
they are. But I'm surrounded by women. I got my wife, even the dog. I have no testosterone in my house.
So we have 3 male cats.
See? So there's a balance there.
Yeah. We have
There's,
some
I,
dog.
yeah, I have nothing. I think I'm just gonna go start getting cats and like sneaking them in the house.
I need all the wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. I just as long as they stay
Yeah.
down here because I
It's your
spent
room.
a lot of time putting this collection together. I don't want it to be destroyed.
Yeah, it looks like a nice collection.
It's not bad. It's not bad. I got, you know, Uncle Owen back there too, one of my all-time
See that?
favorites. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. It's great being a wrestling fan and experiencing it and so much. And this conversation has been absolutely amazing. And I know that, like I said, wasn't under the best of circumstances today, but thank you for giving me the time. I appreciate you. And before you go, if you could just give that, you know, Billington energy, that dynamite doll energy, and just say, yeah, pretty cool conversation with Straight Talk Wrestling, and people should subscribe because this was fun.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I had a fabulous time. Well, Straight Talk Wrestling is straight out of Canada, which is even better. I love this, and you can definitely see me hopefully very soon in Ontario, and we will connect and do another interview in person, I hope.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Roundland, go enjoy the rest of your evening, and I appreciate
Thank
you.
you so
And
much.
just to let you know that Ontario always reps and always remembers your dad in the best ways possible.
I love that. Appreciate it so much.
All right. Peace, love, and wrestling, guys. We'll see you next week. Peace. Thank you so much for checking out our channel. If you like what you saw today, please feel free to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss any of our future videos and content. Also, you could follow us on all social media platforms, on X at _Straight Talk, on Facebook and Instagram at Straight Talk Wrestling, on TikTok at Straight_Talk_Wrestling. And of course, you could follow us on Podbean,